Hello, welcome back to the Harry Potter rebinding series. In today's episode, we'll be rebinding The Goblet of Fire. It's been a while since I bought the book cloth for this. I believe this one I'm going to do yellow, mainly because when I think of fire I think yellow, red, orange, and yellow worked for this one, and I've already used red, so yellow for this one. My last one went quite successful. I'm hoping I can repeat that success this time, and so let's get cracking. Okay, so I've just figured out that the book cloth that I've bought, it's not quite the same as the ones I've used before. The backing peels off and the actual book cloth itself is sticky. I'm not entirely sure I like that. I can see the colour of the yarn through it, so I'm not entirely sure how to rectify this other than to stick perhaps some paper behind it and do a couple of tests just to see how that would work with then the book glue. Yeah, I really don't like how this is working out. I've got some scrap somewhere. Here we go, some scrap blue. And that's definitely not the same stuff. Like, I can't peel the back off this and it's sticky. I can't peel the back off it, so I know that that's not sticky. Let me check this one. This one's the green one. Again, I can't peel the back off that and it's not sticky either. So I really don't know, because this paper's like, it's got a shiny side to it. Can you see? So I'm not entirely sure what to do here. I think I need to do a couple of tests, maybe put some paper behind it, see how that reacts, and try and do the end bands again using that with the glue and see how that goes. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to go because I don't like that it's so sticky. I'm not a particular fan of that. Yeah, let's do some tests and we'll see. Okay, so I experimented with the paper backing on the book cloth, and I had to crinkle it quite a bit because it was a thick paper and it didn't feel like it was going to work quite properly. But once I'd crinkled it, after I stuck it down and then ironed out the book cloth, it seemed to do okay. So I think that's the method I'll go for going forward. I managed to get reasonable looking end bands, However, I think I'm probably gonna have to iron these again, just because you can see the crinkles, which hopefully when I do the cover that won't be as obvious, because there's certain parts of this that are, so like this one's relatively flat. I mean, it's still got some crinkles showing on one side, but then this one's quite crinkly. Although now that I'm showing you it, they both look quite crinkly. But besides the point, if I iron it again, it might not be as crinkly. So we'll see with that one, and I'm hoping that that will solve the issue, because if it doesn't, I'm not entirely sure how well it will look on the book board. So we may have to experiment there as well. I've probably got some scrapbook boards somewhere that I can test that on. So yeah, back tomorrow with some more experimentation, and hopefully we can figure out what works and what doesn't work with regards to this sticky book cloth. Okay, so I've got this piece of bookboard here, and I'm going to cut it down this line here, so I've got two pieces to experiment with. The first sort of experimentation I'm going to do is similar to how I did the end bands. So I'm going to put the paper on the book cloth and then add it to the bookboard. And then on the second piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the paper on the bookboard first and then add the book cloth on afterwards without any of the paper on the back, to see whether that makes a difference. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the one where I just put it straight onto the book board. I feel like I'm not super keen on this one. You can kind of see the book board still through the actual book cloth. If I show you the one with the paper next, you can kind of see the difference. Like it's not as bright yellow, it's kind of dull, and you can sort of see in between. So this one's a definite no for me. Now, the difference between the two of these is that this big one here, I put the paper on first, and this one here, I put the paper on the book cloth and then added it on. The thing that I've got to decide is whether it would be easier or not to do it which way. Now, with the paper on the book board first, it was a lot easier to sort of bend the book cloth around the corners, which is something I'm a little bit concerned about if I was to do this with the paper on the book cloth first, because this is incredibly stiff. Unless I do what I did with the end bands, which is where I completely scrunched it up, I don't know whether that will be easy or not to like maneuver around corners. So perhaps that's another test I need to do on another piece of scrapbook board, which luckily I've got quite a lot of. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a piece on the book cloth like I did just in this one. Try a piece without scrunching the paper, see whether that bends around the corners nicely, and do a piece where I have scrunched it around the corners and see whether that one works nicely around the corners. If that doesn't work, I think my next safest bet is to do this method and to put the paper on the book board first and then go from there. I'm going to go on to the next experimentation first, and then we'll see from there. Okay, so the results are in. This is the one I did without any crinkling of the paper. I managed to find it relatively not easy, but also not super difficult to do. So it wasn't too much of a hassle to put around the corners and to make it go to shape. So I'm not too bothered about if I have to use this method. It probably will be the method that I use just to save time. The crinkling before and after, I genuinely can't remember which one I did before, which one I did after. I made a split-second decision to change and make two different crinkle experimentations. One with crinkling with the book cloth on top, and one where I crinkled the paper before and then put the book cloth on top afterwards. I don't feel like it's made too much of a difference, but I feel like you can still kind of see the crinkling a little bit in each of these. Maybe not so much on the one that says crinkling before, because I kind of squished that onto the bookboard with my bone folder, and I forgot to do that with the one that says crinkle after. That's why you can see the pen smudged a little bit, because I did that afterwards. So I think for ease of saving time and just extra effort, I think I'm going to do this one without the crinkling. One, because I won't have any sort of issue with any crinkling for the book cloth, and I know then that I won't have any crinkles at all along the entire bookboard. So I think that's the one I'm going to go for. I'm glad I did this experimentation, because I might have decided to do something different and it might not have looked as good. Okay, so I've just popped the bookboard hardcover mock-up around the book to make sure that it would all fit nicely, which it does. So that's that part complete. The next part is to get the book cloth sorted, so I'm gonna have to cut that out and stick paper to it. So I'm hoping this will go relatively easy. Not entirely sure how well it's gonna go, but we'll see. And hopefully it's gonna look all right when I fit it to the bookboard. If not, I'll have to come up with another method, but yeah, we'll see. So that's the next step, and then after that it will be putting the design on and then gluing it to the actual book. Okay, so I finally finished the book. It's just in the book press now so that the glue can dry and it can all be pressed flat. It seems to have gone pretty well this time, despite the fact of the yellow book cloth not being quite what I expected. So before we get into the final reveal, I just want to say a quick thank you for watching. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed watching me go through this process, and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. And without further ado, let's get on to the final reveal.